What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Undefeated Post-Weigh-In Show, the first one ever for 2023. We're talking UFC Vegas 67, and I am amped up. I'm ready to do my favorite show of the week. I know. I have fun guests, and we get to talk for 2 hours straight and stuff like that on the Monday show. I love it, too, but the Friday show where we get to kind of put all the pieces of the puzzle together, I get to wear the tinfoil hat. This is where it's at, everybody. Speaking of where it's at, this is Pub Sports Radio. The lines I'm about to quote to you are brought to you by Superbook Sports. Make sure you check out and support both of those. Oh, and by the way, did you know that we're now doing contests at Pub Sports Radio? That's right. Check out the website, pubsportsradio.com. We are doing Pick'em UFC contests. You get to select the fighter. You get to select the method. You get to select the round. And yes, there are prizes. So make sure you go check that out. They are free to enter. What do you got to lose? Let's get into this bad boy. We're going to take one final look at these fighters as they step on the scale. We're going to try and find any little advantage we possibly can that can turn into bettable, actionable information for you. Let's get started with the bad news. We lost a fight. Surprise, surprise, everybody. UFC 2023 is picking up right where 2022 left off. Sijara Eubanks, weight cut issues. Surprising nobody. Cashed those minus 110 Sarge misses weight tickets because we all kind of knew that was coming at 125, right? I was very tempted to make a bet on this fight, but I also had that little voice in the back of my head like, I don't even know if this one's going to happen. Sure enough, Sarge misses weight. We're pulled. It's over. I don't get to see my girl blue hair Cachoeira knock anybody else out in the cage. I'm a little disappointed. So first fight on the docket is instead going to be Jimmy Flick taking on Charles Johnson. Right now, Jimmy Flick can be had at plus 270. Charles Johnson is the minus 330 favorite. Both men made 126 pounds. Jimmy Flick looks really sucked out, guys, like those cheekbones. He looks like he's been away for a while, but he moved well enough. I'm not too worried about him. Charles Johnson looked good, great shape. This guy also moved well, big smile on his face. He did a limp wrist thing. I'm not sure what he was alluding to there. Trying to translate athletes is a very difficult thing to do. Big size difference here. We knew Charles Johnson was going to be a decent bit larger than Jimmy Flick. Flick is much smaller. This was a good face-off. Flick was very intense at this face-off, not backing down from anything. I love this fight. I mean, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun. This thing could go any way. I could see Charles Johnson knocking Jimmy Flick out with a front kick in the first round. I could see Jimmy Flick, rolling and grabbing an ankle and leg locking Charles Johnson. I can see a scramble that leads to a back take. I can see a club and sub. I could see this thing going 15 minutes and having Charles Johnson just sit on Jimmy Flick's chest and be able to defend himself from that position. This fight is going to be fun to watch. I do not suggest betting it. I think there's going to be violence. I don't think this one's going to make it all 15 minutes, no matter who ends up winning it. We've seen Jimmy Flick tire out and get knocked out by guys that are better than he is at striking. Charles Johnson has never been submitted, and that's something that I think kind of eliminates one of Jimmy Flick's paths to victory. But Jimmy Flick is one of these, really awkward, scrambly grapplers, not your standard look for the rear naked choke type. So you never know what we're going to get here. I am passing on this fight. My prediction is Charles Johnson gets it done, probably gets the knockout at some point, but I am a heart and soul Jimmy Flick fan, so I will be rooting for him from the opening bell, and honestly, I hope he gets the sub because that would just be fantastic for this guy to disappear for 2 years, come back and pick up right where he left off with a big submission win. It would be fun to see, but definitely not one I'm having any interest in betting. If you got that under 2.5 at minus 120 when the books opened it, you did your job. Everything else is just kind of throwing darts at this point because the total right now is 1.5 and the over is minus 140. The under is plus 120. Good luck. Good luck if you're betting this one. I am not. Next up, we've got Nicaragua taking on Dan Argueta. We've got Nicaragua making 125.5 pounds. Daniel Argueta making 126. That's not right. Let me find MMA Junkie because I got the wrong note here. I've got one of them marked as making 145 as opposed to 146. So we're doing it live, folks. I mistyped something here, and give me just 2 seconds to check that out. It is, in fact, 40. So Nicaragua made 145.5. Dan made 146. And this one was intriguing to me because Dan, we just saw him coming in on short notice, up a weight class, got beaten by Damon Jackson, who's going to be fighting later on this card. showed good solid defense, almost got him out of there in the third round when Damon Jackson was looking a little bit slowing, a little bit tired. He almost gave that fight up, so Dan was very interesting to me. However, he was the last to weigh in today. He needed the box of shame. He is jacked. This is like a little muscle monster type of fighter. Needing the box of shame in this kind of a spot when he's fighting 10 pounds up from his normal weight class, that raises an eyebrow for me. That provides some questions here for me. I'm wondering why he's struggling to make weight with the extra 10 pounds on him. Now, Nick Vieira, he's one of these unassuming physique type of guys. You're never going to look at him and he's not the most jacked guy in the room. You're not going to be scared of him. Blank face, no emotions, looks like he's been there his entire life, and he's big. When these guys faced off, I was floored by the size difference. I expected Dan to be a little bit shorter because he always is. He's the shorter, tankier guy in every single fight. But Nick is massive. I looked back at their records, and Nick has fought as high as 155 before, whereas Dan is a natural 135er. So this is a big size gap here where these guys are meeting. And even though Nick is coming in here on short notice, I actually have some interest in him. I think this line is incredibly wide. Dan Argueta is a minus 550 favorite, and I think this is that we just saw this guy recency bias. He had an okay performance against Damon Jackson. Didn't get the win. Now everybody wants to pile on him on this spot. But again, he's going to be at a big size disadvantage. He gets stuck on bottom sometimes and relies on strength, explosion, and athleticism to get back up to his feet. He's nothing to write home about on the feet. And he's taken on Nick, who's a guy that's been training with guys like Bilal Muhammad at Valley Flow Striking. This guy takes people out with a really nasty front choke series. I did some tape on him, and I know he's been fighting, questionable lower level competition, guys that are, 2-0 and 4-1, stuff like that. So this is a big jump up for Nick, but he does also show a lot of the raw talent and skills that you would like to see. And on top of that, he's a good wrestler. He's got decent timing, good level changes, and he's going to have that size advantage. I think there's a very live dog here. I think the over 1.5 at minus 135 is a decent bet here. Big questions with the short notice replacement. We see a lot of first round finishes under those circumstances, so don't necessarily flock to that one. But I think Nick at plus 425, I think this is kind of a minus 150 plus 125 type of spot. I may be taking the shot on that big underdog because if you recall, Daniel Argueta is an Ultimate Fighter throwaway. He's a guy the UFC wasn't really interested in signing in the first place. Now they've got him in his second fight out of his normal weight class, taking on a 7-0 undefeated prospect that just got done fighting at Anthony Pettis' organization. I'm wondering who's the real prospect here. I think these guys are closer to pick 'em than the line suggests by a lot. I think Nick is live. I'll probably be taking a look at taking a stab there on Nick Vieira here. First big dog of the card. First big dog of the year. Let's go. Let's see what happens. Carlos Hernandez taking on Alan Nascimento. Hernandez 125. Oh, you know what, though? First big dog of the year definitely qualifies for the tinfoil hat. It would have been bad juju if I forgot to put the damn hat on. All right. Carlos Hernandez taking on Alan Nascimento, 125 for Hernandez, 125.5 for Nascimento. Quick weigh-in for Hernandez, no business, no goofing. He's on and off extremely quickly, not a guy that struggles with the weight. Alan Nascimento was in fantastic shape. I mean, he went full-on hero pose on the scale today, and he is huge. This was a respectful face-off, but my God, Nascimento is massive. Now, earlier in the week, I talked about maybe wanting to take a stab at Carlos Hernandez because of the way he defends takedowns, because of the way the floor is lava. He gets back to his feet as quickly as he possibly can, does all the right things that you want to see, and I think on the feet, this thing is relatively competitive. The size difference is keeping me far away from this thing. I still don't trust Alan Nascimento. I still want to see whether or not his takedowns are going to be effective once we actually get in the cage on Saturday. I will look to live bet this one. If you can see Alan Nascimento slowing down, if he's getting tired, if the takedowns aren't coming easily, then we jump on Carlos Hernandez live. But I need to see it before we actually put our money on it, because Carlos Hernandez has defended takedowns from guys his size extremely well. Nascimento is far from his size, so he just could get wet blanketed like everybody else. I'm going to go ahead and lean Nascimento for the win at this point from a betting perspective. I don't want to lay minus 340 on him, so it's a pass for me, and keep a very close eye out on this thing live. Next up, Nick Vieira taking on Mateusz Rebecki. We've got Nick Vieira coming in at 155, Rebecki 155.5. Vieira actually gave a slight wobble on the scale today. His eyes were kind of half shut and rolling a little bit. He looked like he had a pretty tough weight cut. Now, this is another short notice fighter coming in here, so no surprises there that this was probably a rushed cut, but he did not look like he was doing too well. That waver is something that I look for. The lack of balance is something that I look for in a tough weight cut. Now, I can take this off now. Mateusz Rebecki, this guy is jacked. I mean, gave a huge flex when he got up there. He was ready to go, pumped up. He's one of these little muscle monsters. You love to see it. Good face-off. Vieira's got a good solid size advantage. Rebecki obviously much thicker on the other side of this thing. But dear God, we got a minus 750 on Mateusz Rebecki. He's getting close to cousin Umar up there for being the biggest favorite on the card. Vieira is a plus 525 underdog. The way I'd be looking at this thing is the under 1.5. Under 1.5 at minus 145 is kind of pulling me right now. I don't know that this thing gets out of the first round. Nick Vieira is a one-round submission grappler, BJJ black belt, very high level on the ground. We've never seen him go beyond the first round before, coming in on short notice with what is potentially a bad weight cut, taking on a short, stocky fighter that is going to be hard to take down, throwing bombs, nukes at that potentially tarnished chin from a weight cut. Mateusz Rebecki fires with everything he's got, gets on top of people, pounds them out. I could absolutely see this being over and in a hurry, whether it's Rebecca getting a ground and pound finish or whether it's Nick Vieira finding his way to a back take or something like that and locking up a submission. Now, this is where things get interesting, because if you're going to look at, any type of props or something for this fight, over on Superbook Sports, Nick Vieira by sub is 15-1. He's a high-level BJJ black belt making his UFC debut against an untested guy. Like, if you like the Vieira side and you love in yourself a little bit of a sub sprinkle, 15-1 is the number where you want to do it. That's literally his path to victory. Unless he backpacks his man and makes it a full 15 minutes, which I've got a hard time seeing him pull off. I think the only way he wins this fight is by sub, and 15-1 is much tastier than plus 525. Now, Rebecki, on the other hand, you can get even money or plus 120 over on Superbook Sports for the knockout prop, and I think that's probably his most likely path to victory as well. You'd think he uses those strong hips, lands one of those nukes. I definitely think we see violence, and I think we see a finish here. I think it's under the 1.5. I think the under 1.5 at minus 145 is probably a good number, but he doesn't go the distance. You can parlay that at like minus 400. I don't see how this fight goes 15 minutes, frankly. So I don't think that's a bad bet either. Abdul Razak Al Hassan taking on Claudio Ribeiro coming up next. We've got Abdul Razak Al Hassan making 185.5. Ribeiro made 183, which is weird because it's his second fight in the UFC now that he's come in under 185. So very intriguing to know what's up there. Some guys just do that. I mean, what's his name? Buckley comes to mind. Joaquin Buckley always comes in like 3 pounds under too. So not sure if he needs to drop a weight class or if he just cut a little too long, or they need to iron that out. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, though, this guy was amped up. I mean, he was the first guy to weigh in this morning, and he was literally barking while he was like waiting for them to get the weigh-ins going this morning. He didn't look overly swollen, so he's not puffy or anything like that. Looks like he slimmed down a decent bit, which kind of leans me towards cardio work. Gave a big solid flex and a scream when he got on the scale today. This is a scary human being. Claudio Ribeiro literally danced his way to the scale today, which you gotta love to see. Obviously no weight cut issue there for him. Big smile on his face. He was in great shape. Ribeiro's got a slight size advantage, but this was an intense stare down. This is the pick'em fight of the week, everybody. Minus 110, both sides. I've seen a lot of hot takes either way. I want nothing to do with this bad boy. I made a slight argument for the over 1.5. I could see these guys kind of respecting each other, maybe cage pushing each other and using some grappling and grinding the clock out. We saw Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight like that last time out, and then we also saw the Munir Lazzez fight where Abdul Razak Al Hassan got stuck on the edge, with a guy that was taller, longer, and had a jab. That's something Claudio Ribeiro could easily do in this spot, but the power these two bring to the table, I just don't know if I've got the balls to bet the over 1.5. I really don't know that I do. Not this early in the year. Not when I'm trying to get on the right track here. I'm not sure I'm going to bet anti-violence on this kind of a fight, but that's the way that I kind of lean here. I guess I'll say Claudio Ribeiro. I think I'm picking Claudio in this spot, but really nothing would surprise me in this fight. Javid Bashara taking on Mateus Mendonça, which, by the way, that's how you pronounce his last name. It's spelled Mendonca, but it's pronounced Mendonça, apparently. So Javid made 136. Mendonça made 134.5. Javid is intense as always. You gotta love this guy. He gave a strong flex, looking good on the scales today. His opponent, Mateus, gave a guttural scream when he got up on the scales today. This guy is beyond pumped up. Bright, shiny blue hair. I wish that was something I could do. All these kids running around with their bright hair. I always wanted to dye my hair. My dad would never let me do it. And then when I got old enough that I could make my own decisions, it was too late. It was already gone by then. So what we've got here is a spot where Javid Basharat is taking money hand over fist. And the line moves the other way. He popped down to about minus 315 after being up as high as minus 350 earlier in the week, which makes me scratch my chin just a little bit because absolutely everybody is expecting Javid to roll in this spot. Now, he's back up to minus 320 at Superbook Sports, so it looks like the line is continuing to trend his direction. I am picking Javid Basharat to go ahead and win this fight. Both these guys are undefeated. I also have some interest in the under 2.5 at plus 100. I know neither of them have lost, but the way these two guys fight, I could see this being a car crash. Whether one guy gets clipped on the feet or if it hits the ground and Javid goes to work with that slick ground game, one way or the other, I really think somebody's getting finished in this fight. This was a very intense stare down, and it was kind of funny because Mateos tried to get Javid to flinch, like barked at him and like went for the double leg type of thing. Javid just stared him down stone cold. You love to see that. I need to go back and check the weigh-ins. I want like a running total of guys that flinch at the weigh-ins and whether or not they win or lose the fight, because I feel like the guy trying to make you flinch is usually the ones that ends up losing. I don't know. My brain is telling me the guys that go for the punk and then fail on it are the ones that end up not winning the fight for some reason. And then for whatever reason, Mateos did the I'm gonna kill this guy and like did the 2-finger gun at Javid and then tried to shake his hand. Javid was like, no, like you just tried to punk me and then you said you're gonna kill me and then you want to shake my hand. I'm all about no nonsense Javid. I like it. I'm picking Javid Basharat. A little worried about maybe a parlay piece, but I do think he probably gets it done. Raoni Barcelos taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. Both guys made 135 pounds. Business as usual here for Raoni Barcelos. Great shape, looked relaxed, genuine smile on his face today on the scale. Umar, though, this guy's intense. Like, intense glare, looked extremely sucked out, but he is big. When these two guys face off, he looks like he's a full weight class larger than his opponent. I don't know what's up with these Russians, you know. Khabib and Umar, they just know how to cut weight. These guys legitimately are cheat codes. They're a full weight class larger than their opponents. No wonder they can out-grapple and stuff everybody all the damn time. They're just so freaking huge. He was like up there licking his lips because I'm sure he had no water in his body whatsoever, but it doesn't matter because he'll fight fine tomorrow. You've got cousin Umar, a 10-1 favorite, and I know this line is out of control, but I still can't bring myself to back Raoni Barcelos. I think Umar is the future. I think he gets it done on Saturday, whether it's by decision or by sub. That's his call. I'm expecting domination from cousin Umar. Next up, we got Raquel Pennington taking on Ketlen Vieira. Pennington made 135.5, Vieira 136. Rocky, same old thing, got up there, threw up her number one. She's looking for that title shot. She's looking for that opportunity. And I listened to the interviews with Rocky, and honestly, they're a little concerning for me this week. So I've been on this Rocky resurgence train. She's been a bit of a money train for me over the last couple of fights, these last 4 or so, where she's been underappreciated by the betting market and keeps on pulling off the wins. Now she's stepping back up in the contenders circle, and she's talking about she wants to get through this fight, she wants to make a statement, she wants to get the title, but she wants a quick turnaround. She wants her crack at the title in like the next couple of months, and then she's going to take time off to be a parent. You know, her and her partner, Tisha Torres, are having a baby, and that changes everybody's mindset. You know, we've seen fighters that come back from that fighting far fiercer after having children. We've seen fighters come back, especially some of the moms who just don't have the mean streak that they used to before they had the child. And I'm just stating facts here. We've actually seen this play out in the octagon. One thing Raquel mentioned in her interview is that this process has turned her into a baby. She has been far more emotional leading up to this fight. She said she's been crying about everything. And that's a bad sign to me. Personally, this is the way I'm interpreting it. I don't want somebody who's a hardened, badass MMA fighter who's been around since the get-up, who is over 35 years old, now turning to starting a family, suddenly becoming extra emotional when they've never been that way before in their entire lives. That's concerning to me, stepping back into a cage. especially combined with the fact that she's talking about the quick turnaround, getting her crack at the title, and then being potentially done or taking a long break with her family. That feels almost like a retirement situation. That feels almost like how I treat retiring fighters, where it's one foot out the door. It's, hey, we got one left in us. But they know. At the end of the day, that cage closes for the final time. They already know they're done. You don't train quite as hard. You don't work quite as hard. If you've got an opportunity to tap, you don't necessarily fight through it the way that you used to, and that's how you put food on the table. That's kind of how this feels to me with Rocky, is that this is one last run before I start the family. And on the other side of this thing, we've got Ketlen Vieira, who's foaming at the mouth. She made 136, no issues, extremely intense on the scale today. And she's huge. When they face off, I mean, that's one thing with Rocky. She's always kind of the bully in there. She out-muscles people in the clinch and outworks them. Ketlen is massive when they faced off. There's a significant size difference here. And that could correlate to a strength difference as well. We talked about it last season, folks. I made a couple of bets on, like, aging veterans that just didn't go very well when they were facing this young, hungry, up-and-coming contender type of fighter. And they all failed. We've been seeing a massive changing of the guard in the UFC here for the last 9 months or so. And I've gone from thinking maybe Rocky is live to that's probably what this is. You've got a 35-year-old Raquel Pennington who is exactly who she is. That's worked and gotten her so far. But is she going to be able to bully someone like Ketlen Vieira, who is improving, who is younger, who is bigger, who is stronger, when she's got potentially one foot in the grave already? I don't think so. I've gone from thinking maybe slightly into Raquel Pennington to, folks, I may bet Ketlen Vieira by tomorrow. Minus 125 for Ketlen Vieira over on Superbook Sports, plus 105 for Rocky Pennington. And I talked about it on the Total Takedown that I lean violence for some reason in this fight. I've got a sneaky feeling that with the stakes of this fight, with the way these two go to work, that somebody might put a stamp on this fight. Now, Ketlen Vieira by sub is 7-1. Ketlen Vieira by knockout is 10-1. We have seen Rocky have some bad reactions to people who are striking heavy, who have that big power punching. She's not reacted well when she takes that kind of damage after the Nunes fight. Ketlen by knockout is 10-1 is a very interesting thing for me here. Now, on the flip side of this, Rocky by submission is 8-1. We did see her put out an opponent very recently, and this fight could end on the ground very, very quickly. We see Rocky go for takedowns. We see Ketlen Vieira go for those hip tosses. This fight could end up on the mat. Both of them should be live for a sub. So if you're looking at props, that's where I'd be looking to sprinkle. But I'm also tempted on the under, and the fight doesn't go the distance, just because I think for some reason someone's going to actually make a statement in this fight and become the new contender for this weight class. Oh, I'm not going to be happy if Rocky gets knocked out. I'll be honest with you. I'm such a fan of hers. All right, co-main event time. Not co-main event time. We got one more. Sorry about that. Roman Kopylov is taking on Punahele Soriano. Kopylov made 185. Puna made 185.5. And Kopylov was stone cold on the scales today. I mean, dialed in, gave a solid flex, looked good. Puna, I mean, you don't get much more solid flex than this guy. Absolutely jacked. Gave that back muscle flex. Like, he's got back muscles I don't think they even have a name for. This guy is huge. Now, when they face off, though, Roman Kopylov is massive. Like, I know Puna has that, broad back, and he's a big, muscly guy, but Kopylov is like a good 4 inches taller than him. This is a big size difference between these two, and Kopylov is not a small man. I've been leaning towards Roman Kopylov basically all week. He was plus 135 earlier. He's plus 130 now. And I did get confirmation from Superbook that the only sharp action they received as far as a side is concerned is somebody came in on Roman Kopylov. I think he's extremely live in this fight. We have seen Puna be outclassed and out-finessed on the feet before. If he can't land that nuke, he absolutely cannot keep up with slicker strikers. Now, he's younger, he's improving, he's at a good gym, so there's a chance that all of that is in the past, and there's a chance that Roman Kopylov is a complete bum who's fought lower-level guys in the UFC, surviving by the skin of his teeth to get where he's at. These are all true things. It's dog or pass for me. I have not bet it. I know everybody and their mother on Twitter is on Puna, and I'm probably going to get mocked in the comments section of this video for picking against that, because this is the group mind tank of the week, is that everybody's on Puna. I haven't bet anything, But if I'm going to bet this fight, it's going to be Roman Kopylov. I'm not on Puna for this one. Under 2.5 doesn't seem bad, though. The way Kopylov's hand speed goes, the way Puna nukes people, I do think we probably could get a finish in this one. So I could see that being an outcome if you wanted to just kind of play violence. But the other one, where it gets a little tinfoil hatty is the Kopylov by decision at 4-1. That seems interesting to me because if he does keep that game plan of sticking to the jab, staying on the outside, avoiding the wrestling, avoiding the power, this thing could get extended and he could win a decision. That's not a bad look. I think that's a justifiable bet if you want to go that way. But again, I'm not sure if I'm going to be laying my money on this kind of a risky proposition this early in 2023. Dan Ige. 145.5 taking on Damon Jackson, 145.5 as well. Ige looked a little weird on the scales today, I'm not going to lie. No issues or anything like that, but he looked almost disappointed. I'm not sure if he's just trying to remain calmer or something like that, but he just looked a little nonplussed on the scale there. Damon Jackson, slight wobble when he went to flex. Now, we know he's got a tough cut. We've always seen that. Damon Jackson looks rough on the scales on Fridays every single time, so this doesn't surprise me. And we've seen him perform very, very well even given that before, so I'm not going to read too far into that, but it does look like he had yet another rough weight cut. This was an intense face-off. Both guys got in super close. Both guys locked in. Crazy eyes going. Height advantage for Damon Jackson. I've been ping-ponging back and forth on this one all week, and I kind of think I've settled on Dan Ige and the under. I know they have had some respectable action at Superbook Sports on the under 2.5. I think violence is definitely the move here. We've seen Damon Jackson hurt and rocked in a lot of his recent fights. Dan Ige is a much more technical boxer than the guys he's been facing, and he hits freaking hard. So I think Dan Ige is probably going to get the knockout here. That's kind of my prediction, is Ige by knockout. But we also can't ignore the fact that Damon Jackson is the king of the club and sub, and he's been looking spectacular lately, catching people with things like front kicks and shit that you just never see coming. So even though Dan Ige's never been finished, if there was a guy that was going to catch him with something crazy, it'd be a guy like Damon Jackson. So Damon Jackson. So I'm going to lean with the under 2.5 at plus 140. Dan Ige is my pick to win the fight. I'm not sure how I'm addressing this yet. I may go Ige and then also a unit on the under 2.5. I might just bet violence and let the side pass me by and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not sure if I want to double up on this one or if I want to just pick a lane. We'll see. I'm going to put my card together tonight, tweet it out tomorrow always. You'll get that information, of course, if you follow me on Twitter. And then next up for the main event, Nassourdine Imavov taking on Sean Strickland. Imavov came in at 194. Now, with the late notice replacement, this has turned into a catch weight. Sean Strickland made 204. These guys are technically fighting at 205, but they're both 185ers by trade. That's a big jump, by the way. We're not talking 145 to 155 where you only get a 10-pound difference. This is a 20-pound jump, so not surprising that these guys' weights are kind of all over the place here. Nassourdine looked incredible. Pounded his chest up there. Really looks like he's dialed in here. Sean Strickland, on the other hand, didn't shave, hair all over his chest, looked like he rolled off the couch. You could see the extra weight on him. Sean Thickland is what I like to call him here at 205. Sean Strickland was talking to the crew, wouldn't stare his opponent down. Imavov, on the other hand, was dialed in, told him he wasn't ready. I mean, what do you expect? Sean Strickland is never going to take something like this seriously. It's not something that he does, and we're getting the same old Strickland you've always ever seen. It looks like money is coming in on Nassourdine Imavov and the under. Now Nassourdine is minus 135 when this was a pick'em not too long ago. Sean Strickland, the plus 115 underdog. I think this is a tougher fight for Nassourdine than Kevin Gastelum was. I said that earlier in the week, and I thought this was a pick'em price tag. Now, that's right where the books landed on this thing, was a pick'em price tag, but the money has slowly started to trickle in on Nassourdine to get the win, and I think I agree with that. I started off saying that because this was a much tougher fight, that maybe I would lean towards Sean Strickland, but after kind of digging into it, just because it's a pick'em fight, it doesn't mean I have to pick the guy that's now the pick'em price tag, right? Like, I don't know that Sean Strickland is going to do anything different from what we've seen from him, and that's something I really need to work on this year. I talked about it at the end of last year, my recap video for 2022. When fighters tell us who they are, we need to believe them, and that's something where I keep on making arguments for Sean Strickland. He could push the pace. He could have a killer instinct this time. Maybe there's a sense of urgency because he's gone to so many close decisions. You know what? Maybe he goes to the grappling. We know he's got a slick ground game. He could use it this time. He never does. He just never does. So if Sean Strickland's going to do the same thing he always does, I think he loses to Nassourdine Imavov. Now, the big question is the 5-round nature of this fight. I worry about the cardio issues for Nassourdine Imavov. I worry about the fact that we've never seen him go this deep in a fight. Even though he's the one that is on the full camp here, I don't question whether or not Sean Strickland can go 25 minutes. If Nassourdine doesn't finish Sean Strickland or come with just a completely different game plan where he can pace himself better, I worry about those later rounds. Now, I'm not going to be sprinkling the rounds 3, 4, and 5 with Sean again or anything like that or any of that bullshit. But those bear mentioning, because if Nassourdine is completely gassed out, he may gift Sean Strickland a finish later on in this fight if he can't keep up for the 25 minutes. Too many questions for me, changing weight classes, short notice, a contender that I think the world of versus a veteran who I think is a tough fight for pretty much anybody. I'm not betting the main event, folks. I'm going to pick Nassourdine Imavov to go ahead and get the win. I don't think I'm putting my money on this fight. Now, we've got a total set at 4.5 for this one, and I do kind of lean violence, like I said, because if Nassourdine gasses out, Sean Strickland could get gifted a finish. If Nassourdine goes to the ground, we know Sean's got a decent ground game on him. He could find his way to a submission. And then Nassourdine, being the younger, hungrier, improving fighter who's much bigger, also could just take advantage of the fact that Sean Strickland's on a quick turnaround after getting bludgeoned by Jared freaking Cannonier just a couple weeks ago. I think there's a lot of ways this fight finishes. But again, every time I think Sean Strickland's going to get a finish, he jabs his way for 25 minutes. I mean, look back at the Uriah Hall fight. That fight should have been over in the third. And Sean just continued to poke him for another 15 minutes because he's Sean Strickland. So I refuse. I'm not putting my money on this fight. Good luck if you are betting the main event in this spot. I will not be doing so. I'm picking Nassourdine Imavov. I think the under is the way to go. Neither of those are getting my money. That is the Undefeated Post-Weigh-In Show, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Good luck on all your degenerate action, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow for the first fight card of the year. Let's roll.